I know. I'm trying to fix my COVID hair.
There's COVID toes. There's COVID a lot of things, but I don't know if there's COVID hair.
Trust me, this is COVID hair. You don't want
That
it.
looks like something you can sell. I mean, I like the new look, Joanne.
Oh.
I think it's
Oh my
now,
God.
no, if you wanted to see COVID hair, you should have seen me a couple weeks ago before I had my haircut, which you probably
I
did.
did.
Yeah,
You had the what I call the gnome head.
yeah.
You know
I was,
those plastic gnomes, you used to like shake them and like play with the hair that came in it. Do you remember them? They were
oh
like,
yeah,
so
they're
like they
the
had like
trolls.
fuzzy
Those were the trolls,
trolls.
not
I
the
call them
gnomes.
gnome. But yeah, the little, and you would shake
Yeah.
them and it could be like this, or you could like play with them. And
My hair is a lot like that. It's super fine, so it'll take on a life of its own. And it was. I mean, it was horrible. I couldn't take it, but
that's
it's
all good.
better
Wait,
now.
oh, you have your clowns. I have to put my background on. Let's make this official. Hold on.
Well, you do have the part of your you do have part of your logo.
There you go.
Corner.
There you go. How's that?
Yeah, I used to have the green screen. I don't do that anymore.
You know what? I don't do it a lot, but I figure for these, I probably should.
You gotta be on brand, right?
But I'm glad you have the clown suit on. So can we expect any wardrobe malfunctions at all? Or
Probably. Well, no, because I'm not wearing pants right now. I'm wearing shorts. So.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you qualified that.
I'm gonna tell you
this is what it's all about.
but not wearing pants.
No,
you know
we're
what?
shooting the shit, right?
What's that?
This is us shooting the shit.
Yeah, I know. So these shorts I got, they're pretty nice, you know.
Yeah.
You can't. Well, never mind. That almost turned creepy. Okay. But I got them in Hawaii, so we're doing a horseback ride. And they've got a little belt on them; they won't fall down. They're safety shorts, you know.
Safety shorts.
So it was funny. I had this huge spider follow me while we're doing this horseback ride. It was, it was big, and the lady that was doing that was kind of had us all was freaking out because she was wondering how I was going to react, like don't fall off your horse. And I'm like grabbing my camera, taking pictures of the spider on me. She's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh man, this is crazy. Like, see how big this spider is.
Okay. Have you seen the movie We're the Millers?
Yes. Yeah.
So, with the spider, goes up the kid's leg and then bites him, and then he ends up in the hospital because it gets a little bit swollen.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem.
But that's what I thought of as soon as you said. As soon as you said spider, that's where my mind went. So
yeah, it jumped off and everything was fine. I got a few pictures of them, but none of them were in focus. It's like all that trauma and nothing. So
well, at least you've got the shorts.
I got a nice pair of pants out of them. They're convertible pants that you can take the legs off, and they're safe. They won't fall down. So
oh, it's awesome. I love it. All right. So Scott, how have business conversations changed over the last 2 weeks?
How have they changed? I don't know if they've really changed that much. They've just become more acute. I think there's two types of people out there, and I'll subdivide one in two categories, I suppose. So maybe you can say there are three, but there's, we're in a situation right now where, things have changed dramatically, and it's put people in that fight or flight kind of mode, And so I'm seeing fighters and flighters out there, and I guess they've always been there, right? I mean, that's always existed. It's like they're revealing themselves a little bit more. So I think the conversations have been more direct and pointed, I suppose, in that respect. And you can see people are getting, so the fight is either greater, and then the flight is either, and I said I'd break that down into two categories, right? There are either people who are just sleeping, who are just like, I'm taking a nap on this thing, I'll wake up later. And then there are people who are running for the hills, right? I mean, those are the two type of flight people. And then you have the people who are like, listen, this is a chance for us. I've had people say this is a godsend, and I don't think that they really truly mean that, but it is with respect to now you can concentrate on things that you have time to process and improve on. And so, you know, the fighters are out there looking at that type of thing and saying, hey, you know, I've got some latency here, some downtime, and I'm going to use this to improve my process and come out of it stronger on the back end. And I think those people probably will be in a much, much better place in the long term, because like every situation, there's going to be a calling of the herd. You know, I mean, some of these, I mean, as much as I hate to say it, I just don't think everyone's going to make it, and they won't. And you can probably predict who that is when you're talking to them. You know, I mean, as sad as that is to say, you know, sometimes you kind of, you know.
The whole lead a horse to water analogy. We were talking about that on Press Chat the other day too, right?
Oh yeah, right.
I mean,
exactly.
The people who are learning and trying to better themselves and do better and meet online and Zoom meetups and even these chat sessions that I've started, the people who are really wanting to figure it out and take advantage of whatever the opportunity happens to be are all here. The ones who need to be, many of the ones who need to be are the ones I think that you said are just kind of either hibernating now or
yeah, I mean, let's face it. I mean, how many businesses have you talked to out there? And this has been kind of the story of my life. This is when you do consulting and you work with organizations to kind of process improve, right? There's sometimes there's wow, I can't believe these guys are making so much money despite all the stuff that they're doing. And so there's a ton of businesses out there that succeed despite themselves. And it's because they do one thing really, really well. And that could be business development, or it could be, we don't get much business in, but the business we do is exceptional. It's profitable. It's all these things that allow them to kind of hide their sins. And, you know, there's we're probably guilty of that at Tech Mailing too. I know we are. I mean, you know, we are not a perfect organization. We probably
no.
I know the vice president doesn't even wear pants on Zoom calls.
I love it.
I mean, you know, I mean, how can you take?
And when he does, they're usually split up the middle. So, you know.
That was a one-time occurrence. One time.
I'll never, ever let you live it in. You know what? It's those moments in time from which true friendships are made.
Yeah, well, you know, I wish the end of that, I wish they were videotaping that one when with a completely straight face. The gal shooting the video was just like, that was the best interview I've ever taped. And she says this with such sincerity. I have to believe her, but not, you know, but not for the reasons that I would like it to be.
So as you know, there will be some people watching this, hopefully more than just my families, but you never know. So just for their benefit, do the little, because they're probably going to want, like, thinking, okay,
yeah, what is
going on? So let's do this little synopsis. Where were you? What was the situation? And how did you end up basically?
Yeah, I mean,
parting the clouds.
Yeah, I've been, we've been good friends with the guys at What They Think, Adam and Eric Vessel's over there.
Oh, they're awesome.
Yeah, they're great guys, very smart. I mean, great for the industry, right? I mean, they're all these things. So, you know, we have a good time, and they're like, "Hey, Scott, we want you to do an interview. Come over here and do an interview. You always got something to say." I'm not sure that it's worth listening to, but I do always have something to say. And so, unbeknownst to me, I got up in the chair to do this interview with Kelly Holmes at Pretty News. I love Kelly, and we do this interview. And unbeknownst to me, I had split my pants, like literally from the bottom of the zipper to where it was sewn on the crotch. I mean, it was just blown open. And I didn't know it. And of course, you know, the gal doing the videotape, you know, tapes the thing up, and it all seemed very on the up and up until the end of the thing. And she goes, "Hey, listen," and with a complete straight face, she says, "Hey, I said that was the best video I've ever taped in my life." And I said, "Why? What was so great about it? I want to learn. You know, I'll do it again. You know." Whatever I said that made it so great, we're just gonna keep. And she goes, "Yeah, you know, when you got up into the chair, you split your pants." And she goes, and then, she goes, it was kind of weird because you had your hands down over it, and then you started going like this, and then you started man spread. And she goes, that was amazing. And I'm like, the whole time I'm like, what? I didn't split my pants. And of course I had to check it out, and I'm like, oh my God. I had certainly split my pants, and it was kind of an emergency. And then thank God, I love you Canadians. You're the nicest people in the world, because Paul Abdul, if you know Paul.
Oh yeah.
You do. So Paul was just like, I don't,
and he's a tall guy like you, right? You're about the same height. He's tall. Like, okay. Paul's here. Oh, you can't see my hands. I'm starting to do this. I'm down. Like, you can't even see me. I'm like so low down. He's so tall.
Paul's like, that was like the nicest compliment. I'm not like Paul. Paul's he's a super nice guy, super intelligent, good looking. I mean, he's a lot of things that I'm not, but apparently Paul had a similar situation in the past, which he prepared himself for in the future. And so Paul had a bunch of safety pins with him, and he said, hey man, I got you covered, Scott. Take these safety pins. So, get yourself back together and, get out there and sell some stuff. So Paul had me covered, but yeah, that was
I thought you were going to say he loaned you pants.
What's that?
I thought you were going to say he loaned you some pants.
Oh man, I would have to get those cuffed up. Paul's tall.
That's where I'm going.
You know what? I would look better. I'll tell you that. I mean, that guy's always dressed to the nines. Paul's never looks shabby. That's for sure.
That's very true. That's very true. But so what do you do now? Like, do you carry an extra pair of cloud pants with you, or?
Well, yeah. So I have. I mean, we usually travel with a dozen suits, because half the time it's like, extend your brand, throw them on someone else. But the pants, they're pretty durable. I mean, I'm surprised I blew them out, because when we're in, I don't know if you've ever seen that poster or the picture of me where I'm scuba diving underwater. People think that's Photoshop, but yeah. We were in the Caymans, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to get an underwater shot of myself, because you could be anywhere. I thought that would be kind of funny and clever. And I'm just like, I'll throw away the suit. And my wife is like, oh no, the house we rented had a washer dryer. She threw them in the washer dryer, hung them in the sun. And I have no idea which suit this is.
No.
So I'm thinking these things are indestructible. You can dive in them, skydive, do whatever. No, they'll eventually give out.
So talking about the suit, I mean, you guys are infamous. I mean, I remember the first time I met you was at, I don't know if it was a graphic.
Yeah, no, I remember.
And I mean, it was like, I have pictures, I had to have pictures with you. What gave you that idea, and how has it impacted your brand and your presence, both at events, which now, of course, you're a little bit quiet now, but in general, I mean, you're here with the jacket on. How much of that has become you?
Well, you can't go out without them. And it's funny when you say, I remember meeting you. It was at Graph Expo in Chicago, and I will bring you back to that moment in a second. You were carrying a bowl of apples back to your booth before the show started. Did you remember that?
No.
Yeah. So.
Oh, no.
I was like, I want one of those apples, but you had this bowl of apples, and then you're like, I need to take a picture with this guy. And you're like, and I don't know who you gave it to, but you're like, here, hold my bowl of apples.
That's something I would do.
Yeah. And so we took a picture, and then you took your bowl of apples and took off. But yeah, it was kind of a funny thing, everyone's looking for some identification of their brand or something to tie it back to, or a memorable thing. And so, Brian and I went to Graph Expo when it was down in Orlando for the first time ever, which was horrible because, because it was Orlando. Also, when you're in a polyester suit, it's not the best place to be.
No, I can't even imagine. It's a good thing to have a dozen or so.
Oh God! As soon as we got out of the hotel, it was like, just sweat everywhere. But we go down there, and Brian's like, the first day we're at the show, he goes, do you think we should wear these cloud suits? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it right away and see what the effect is. And ever since then, I mean, it was one of those things where it was kind of like, wow, we can never not do this. I mean, it's because, because there was a before and after, right? I mean, there was a before the cloud suit time, and then there was an after the cloud suit.
So what's the before and what's the after, and what's the result?
Well, I mean, before Well, no one would come up to you. I mean, in that, I guess in the sales process, we want to reverse everything, right? Instead of making that outbound call, hey, why don't you call me? That would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. I want to sit back and enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is I think everyone goes to those shows to engage. And so, for us in kind of some strange, unbeknownst, mechanism to us when we did it, it was really a barrier remover and just really removed a ton of barriers. And so it kind of reversed that process. It makes you more approachable. And the other thing is that why the hell are you wearing a cloud suit? That's something where someone's engaging me and I could, well, thanks for asking. We happen to be the only cloud vendor for this type of application out there. Do you want to learn more? And then you've qualified them at that time. I mean, they're like, yeah, they're either, I don't do mailing, or there's a cloud solution for mailing. Tell me more about it. That sounds interesting. And so from that perspective, it was really amazing, the kind of the before and after. It was, it was really funny. Do you know Chris Bondi at RIT?
Yes.
An amazing guy. He wrote the Unsquaring the book with Dr. Joe Webb and Wayne. And
smart. So many smart people.
Yeah, he was he was hired as a consultant. I don't know. I probably shouldn't say this, but I won't reveal the names other than Chris.
Okay. As we said, it might just be our families watching this. Who knows?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, and that's fine. Then they can look up Chris and find out who he is. But an amazing technologist. One of the few people in this industry I think really understands workflow technology, print process. I mean, soup to nuts. The guy he's legit. And so he was hired by a consultant or he was hired as a consultant to say, hey, we're upgrading our technology stack. We want you to evaluate all these vendors. And that's how Chris and I found each other. So I'm like, oh God, I didn't even know this guy existed until he reached out to us. And I'm like, man, this, interesting. We've had some great conversations. And I'm looking at Chris's Twitter feed from Graph. And what does he posting a picture of? Because he's all about the cloud. Two idiots in cloud suits walking down the aisle. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, I haven't met you. And I'm like, well, you got a picture of us on Twitter, Chris. Like, that's Brian and I. And he's like, really? And I've reposted that picture and shared it. It's just funny. But yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of hard to quantify what it means. But without it, I mean, we wouldn't be where we're at. I can tell you that.
So how has being the only solution, the only cloud mailing solution, you still are the only cloud mailing solution, correct? Or have you
there's a few other cloud solutions out there. They're not approved by the Postal Service. There's some deficiencies in kind of what they do that can't get them on that list. And they're pretty severe. So the Postal Service just won't approve them. But I don't think it's good to be the only one because there's two things with that is that there has to be a basis of comparison, right? And I just did a post a while ago about, there's one vendor in our space that has an apples to apples comparison. And they're like, oh, look at how we compare to everyone else. And they'll never put us on that sheet, because it's hard to compare. So what do you compare it to? So I think being the only one's not great. But being the first to market is always tough. It's a tougher, now you have to convince the marketplace. Not everyone's Chris Bondi out there spending their entire lives evaluating technology, understanding it, and doing that implementation. So unless you're that person that really gets it, and you know what, Joanne, people get so mad at us. I mean, they're like, why weren't you more forceful in having us switch, a year ago? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we just onboarded a guy, like, we've been talking to for 2 years, and he was seriously upset. But since then, I mean, he got over it pretty quick. He's referred us a ton of business, and he knows mail. But it's hard to be the first one. I'll just say that. I don't think it's necessarily an advantage. Sometimes it's better being second or third and having a better product. And we'll have another version of we'll have direct or mail prayer 2.0 probably coming out early next year or later this fall. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting. Would you think it would be a benefit to be first or be the only one?
Well, one of the questions that I ask a lot of startups when, how would you, I'm all about who do you help and how do you help, right? And how do you differentiate
Yeah.
yourself from everybody else? If you could just, if your statement is vanilla enough that you could insert any company name and like pull it out and pull it in, then there's no difference.
Yeah, what's the point of it? Right.
Right. Now, the problem is sometimes I go, well, we're the only ones, we have no competition. So I'm always like, well, there's usually a few reasons why. One, you actually do have competition, you just don't know about it yet. Or two, nobody wants that product, and that's why there's no competition. And then there are the people like you who find the niche, get there first, and then create the competition. And that doesn't happen very often. A lot of times I find software technology type companies live in their own bubble so long that they lose sight of there is competition. It might not be apples to apples competition, but there is something in there that you need to keep on your toes, because there's always going to be somebody like nipping at your toes, and you need that to always be better, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, you do always have competition. I don't, like if you don't think that, then you're looking at it, you need to step back and look at it from a wider aperture, because if there's no direct competition, then you're competing against a process purely.
Yeah.
Someone's achieving something that this thing's doing, I mean, it's a process difference.
A lot of times you're competing against an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah. Well,
a lot of times you are competing against a lot of Excel spreadsheets, but that's what I tend to find is people just, and I'm guilty of it myself too. I start thinking, okay, what's the process? And I start putting it down, but it isn't always optimized. And so I'm trying to think in everything that I do, and when I'm working with customers, clients, even team members, it's always like, if you're doing something, think about having to do it again. So create it the first time in a way that's very repeatable. So you might need to spend a little bit more time the first time, but if you're using that lens of, okay, this is going to happen again and again and again, how much of this can I kind of template, and how much of this do I need to swap in and out? Maybe that comes from the sort of variable data background and fixed data and variable data and all those other wonderful things that we live and breathe. But yeah, I'm always looking at it that way.
Yeah, I came from, I got into this industry kind of in a strange way, I suppose, and somewhat reluctantly. I mean, Brian, I had a startup before we'd sold. I was going to I wasn't going to do anything. I was going to sit on a beach and, and enjoy my retirement, or, take some time off, really. And like right after the sale of that thing, Brian was like, hey, who I'd known for a long time. He's just like, hey, I need you to come and work for me. And I basically met him in a bar. And I probably did the equivalent of laughing in his face, which was like, do you think I'm interested in that at all? Like, no. Like, I'm not, like I'm not. And I said, let me look at what you're doing, and I'll tell you how I would go to market with that product personally. And so it was like a month long kind of me just, poking around, doing some research and stuff. And then I came back to him and I said, listen, this is what I found is like, I have a hard time believing it exists, The entire industry at some point will switch to a cloud solution for this. Not everyone is that dumb. Like, to put an application, and this is what I'm telling them. I said, not everyone's that stupid. They might be slow to get there, but they're not that dumb. Like, to buy a server, maintain that server, update that server constantly with the application that it's in. And oh, by the way, you're still sending your data off-site for NCOA processing. I'm like, that's the most moronic thing I've ever seen in my life that exists today. I go, and here's where I was wrong, Joanne. I'm like thinking, boy, this is going to happen in a real short period of time, and it's going to happen soon. But you know what? That's where I was wrong. I mean, will will the entire industry switch toward a cloud solution for this? Yeah, I guarantee that. Guaranteed. What I can't guarantee is the timing on it. The timing is always kind of, as I've come to learn, the print industry is 10 years behind everyone else when it comes to adopting new technology. And that is a gospel. But there's always these people who are trying to improve, and that, that's what Chris was all about, right? Where is this going?
Yeah.
And he's been a huge champion and very emphatic. It's seeing the same things we are, and the industry's starting to see that now too, but not because they wanted to. It's because now they're being kind of forced to be more cognizant of, can you work from home? Can you work anywhere? How flexible is this? Does it work with our existing work environment? Why are we doing what we're doing today? Can it be improved? All that stuff is, we're asking those questions now. And this really happened before COVID happened. I mean, this is probably going back 18 months. There's been this like kind of, wrap it up for us. But it's been strange. I mean, I just don't understand, why people aren't more open-minded about it. But, they say the application, is the one that's the best. And it's kind of like, well, maybe. I mean, I can see why you'd say that. But,
so how has COVID impacted curiosity in, again, I print? I'd say insurance is also one of those industries that tends to be a little bit further behind. I think a lot of manufacturing industries in general, although they have like the robotics and they're all about Industry 4.0 and optimization, and that's awesome, but there's still the need for human beings to be there. So I guess my question again is, how has COVID affected that curiosity to be more cloud focused, have it decentralized, and have it accessible to everybody from no matter where they are?
Yep. I mean, one of the things that people just kind of, at least the technologists out there, fundamentally know this. It's more of a, you're transferring a lot of fixed cost into more of a variable cost based off of volume model. And that's part of it. And I think that's a fairly large part because it's the obvious one, right? I mean, you've got this fixed cost now, the volume's gone down. What does that mean to your bottom line? Well, it's eroding it. So how can we mitigate those things? But, that's, like a lot of stuff, it's like, that's what gets you in the door. And it's like, hey, at least with insurance companies, and this is an area where we really kind of, again, I mean, people are reluctant or very resistant to look at this, but, when they do, and they at least open that door up, it's kind of like, okay, what are you doing with your data? Okay, don't do that with it. Like, why? Like you're putting this stuff into a black box. It goes out the back end. You have no business intelligence about it whatsoever. And then they're like, well, what do you mean? And it's just like, well, wouldn't you want to know how each piece on a day-to-day basis rates, and where you can put it in a rate category? And if it's not in the proper rate category, maybe we can rate shop it with a third party and move that to a different rate category for you. I mean, would that appeal to you? And then when they start looking at what does that mean? And I'm like, give me the last 3 months of your data and I'll tell you how much you can save. We saved a printer over $1 million in postage doing that last year. $1 million in postage versus their prior cost savings method. And it's, that's why we're here, is kind of like, when you can make those types of movements. And for that printer, it depends on how people, and this is kind of the thing that's kind of tricky. It's either one of two things for these guys. It's either now we can sell this and I've got a sword that will cut anyone's head off, and we'll go out on the battlefield and get that business because we've got a better way of doing it. And we can articulate that. Or it's I charge a single rate for a print and mail, and I just put $1 million in my pocket. I mean, either way, you're solving a business challenge, right? It's either the acquisition of a client, or it's the increase of margin in a world that is really kind of competitive. But in that space, Joanne, I mean, and this is a fair kind of, I wouldn't say it's a criticism, but a fair observation. It's really tough to change your composition engine and to do all these. You're just not going to wake up one day and be like, hey, we're composing our documents in a new way. Like, we're using this engine now. It's like, yeah, all that stuff has to be manufactured construction. It's not, that's heavy lifting. And that's the weird part about it is keep that. You can keep all that stuff. We'll just plug right into it.
That's what's so awesome about it, right?
Yeah, it really doesn't require a whole lot. I mean, that is what's awesome about it. What do we need to do and put in place in our environment? Well, not much. I'm not asking you to buy anything. You just direct your data to this endpoint that's out in the cloud and give us some business rules and we'll set it up for you. I mean, that's easy.
Now, are you geographically locked? I mean, is it really only for US, or can you, because I know USPS, Canada Post, two totally different beasts, right? Especially when it comes to direct mail. We don't do the incentives and the stuff that you guys do. It's just such a different beast.
Here's the thing, Joanne. This is like supreme consistency. I don't care what country you're from. Everyone complains about, they don't necessarily complain about the postal service as a consumer where they get their stuff in the mailbox. That's not, but if you're a manufacturer putting stuff into it, you have to comply with the rules. Universally, everyone hates their postal service when it comes to that stuff. They just want, it's too complicated.
Yeah.
So there's that, but we are locked geographically. We don't do much in the international or outside of our border space yet. And I don't think we're probably going to migrate to that area, to be honest with you. I know in the case of Canada, they have that kind of locked down. There's a few companies that do it, and you're either partnering with them, but you're not competing with them because they've walled that off. So yeah. So thanks for that.
Well, you know what? We could have this conversation again in 2 weeks, and who knows what it'll be, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes at the Postal Service right now. We've got a new Postmaster General, and there's some stuff floating around that is not positive right now.
Yeah, I've heard. I've heard. We are all facing some interesting challenges.
Yeah, well, that shouldn't be one of them. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know what it is with the states these days, but everything's got to be. There's no pure topic you can discuss without involving politics.
No, there really isn't. It's very difficult to just not potentially offend somebody.
I don't know why that.
Which is unfortunate, because we should be able to just say whatever the hell we want and have a differing of opinions and shoot the shit, and then you go your way, and all is good. But
yeah, Warren Werburn said something about it. He goes, I can't. We were talking on the phone a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how Facebook thing. He's like, I don't know, politics stuff on here and all that. It's frustrating because I don't care what party you're with, at least in the States, and I'm sure it's like this in other countries. It's like people don't seek to understand what you're talking about or where you're coming from. They paint you in the light that their party wants you to be in. And it's as a person who's, I'm pretty independent. I think that there's some great ideas on both sides. And I think that there's a lot of hypocrisy on both sides. I mean, half the time they say, this is what I stand for. And then they go and do the exact opposite thing. Yeah. And it's kind of like, well, but then they're based still. And so when you're independent and you're reviewing the stuff from kind of an area of, I have to say, and this is going to sound bad and cynical, but I disrespect both of them. There's not a lot of respect I have for either one. They play from the same, they play from the same playbook. It's all, it's all coming from an area of, I'm going to paint you in a color that I've decided you should be painted in. And, I'm perfect. So, go die in a fire, I mean,
yeah. It's mudslinging and yeah.
There's no, what do you mean by that? Yeah. Or what are you trying to do? And here's what's stupid about it, Joanne. This is the dumbest thing. Because I try to engage people. Yeah, I was on a flight with someone who had political views that were totally against mine, but were trapped on a flight. So you can't change seats. And so we had a conversation and she got up from the plane and she goes, wow, I never really looked at it that way. And I said, yeah, well, that's kind of what people are thinking though. I mean, you want to look at it this way, but I mean, what people are actually thinking that are opposed to those views agree with you 100%. Like everyone's in agreement about what you're talking about. We just can't decide how to get there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you take the interstate or the local road, and somehow that local road interstate problem turns out to be like, oh, well, if you want to take the local road, yeah, we get there at the same time, you know, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. 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 So it's, you know, to bring it back, it's almost like the age-old sales marketing. We all want the same thing.
Yeah.
But you've got sales with one approach and marketing who's doing everything we can to help sales, and sometimes there's a disconnect, and sometimes we get along, and sometimes we agree to disagree, and sometimes it's, oh God, those are crap leads. And sometimes it's awesome show.
That is such a great analogy, Joanne. I mean,
Thank you.
well, it couldn't be better, because the thing is it, to claim, and let's just talk about the outcome. To claim that a marketing department or a sales department wants a different outcome than what they're both claiming they have is absurd.
Yes.
I mean, that's absurd. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
So what, you know, and then so the question is then what produces the best outcome? If this is the outcome, what produces the best of that outcome? And it's those two teams working hand in hand and driving toward a goal together, and not beating the crap out of each other because they're idiots. You guys are stupid.
Yep.
And that's what that's what the answer always is, right? When things devolve, it's, well, you're an idiot.
Well, marketing says, well, sales can't close the leads we sell. And then sales goes, well, marketing gives us shit leads. And that's usually where it starts. And then it's like, okay, if they're so shit, what would make them better? Well, better leads. So that's where, those are real conversations that I've had. And I work so hard to ensure that, to me, if you don't know what a lead looks like, you will forever be in battle.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You've got to define that.
You've got to know what is a sales qualified lead. If I hand this to you tomorrow, can you do something with it? No. Well, then give it back to me. I'll give it to you when I know you, when we agree that it's time for you to take the baton and run with it, because we can get it so far and then you bring it home. That's the way it works.
So then, do you think both, so if you do that up front, I mean, are they going to have the same definition for what a qualified lead is? Because I'll tell you, a salesperson, you know, some of the salespeople I've worked with, you know, they couldn't. Well, here's the thing. Some of them, you can give them any lead you want and they'll turn it into something. And other people are like, well, a qualified lead is someone who wants XYZ product or willing to pay this amount. It happens to be 10% over our book price. And at that point, you're just taking an order, you know, I mean, you're just taking an order. So, you know, and that's where the marketing department says, well, do we need sales reps then? Because I just sent you a lead that basically was someone who was ready to place an order. I mean, that's a CSR thing, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, but so many times that's where it all falls apart, is in the contract negotiations, and that to me is where sales comes in, because it is about, now we start the relationship, but for the most part, it's a digital relationship from the marketing side of things. To me, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of people hating on me for this, but sales is where you have the opportunity to make it that human relationship, because now we're talking money. And I'm not talking about e-commerce and, you know, that's a whole different thing, but like in a business transaction where you have, you know, you've got an potential, like an implementation process, there might be some migration of data. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen on both sides to ensure that once the deal is done, that everybody's happy with the end result. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, so much of that comes down with, you know, what do you sell and how complicated it is and so forth. But,
right.
You know, the more complicated it is, the more sales matters, right? I mean, because you have to understand the business challenges of the client. You have to understand what you do. And, you know, and then there's the kind of, you know, does it make sense to move forward for both parties? Yeah. There's plenty of businesses that I've just been like, listen, we're not what you're looking for. You know, I can't help you. And the thing is if I can't help someone improve, what do I have at the end of the day? A customer going, what the hell did we do that for? And that's not, when you look at our testimonial pages, we I've been doing those why videos lately. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but why
I've
are
seen
you?
a couple, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of like, I can tell you all day long why I think our stuff's great, but it means so much more to the person who's paying the bills and using the stuff and
Absolutely.
real world ways. And what's interesting, if you look at our videos, is the spectrum of people who are on there. You have Christine Erna, who I believe fairly well.
I love her. I love her.
Yeah, super knowledgeable, comes from white paper factories, super high volume, understands technology, process, and mail. And I mean, I have that, and I have a fan. We have fans that if they have those three things, that we're gold. We can do something. But if you don't understand any of that stuff, you don't understand what you're driving for, and you've got a fixed mindset on what it is. Probably not. Tech Mailing's probably not the company for you. You'll be happier elsewhere. But the thing is the converse of that's true too, right? If all those things are important to you, there's no better vendor than us in the mailing space, in my opinion. I'll say that emphatically. But
I love it.
yeah, it's a strange world. I don't know. I really want. It was what everyone wants to know, right? Where are we going? What's going to be like 6 months from now?
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think?
You know what? It depends on where you are in the world, Joanne. It's like you look at the U.S. response to this stuff, and it really is dig a hole and stick your head in it. I mean, some of these people. What's amazing to me? I mean, you got these people going today. Who could have seen this coming? And I'm like, it was happening in November. We've seen everything. We know exactly what is going to happen. Exactly. How many times do you need to repeat the process to know where we're headed? And it's not. I mean, so yeah. I mean, 6 months from now, if you're in the U.S., I don't think it's going to be very good. You're not going to be able to control a damn thing without controlling this virus first. I mean,
true. Exactly.
That's the deal about it. And the thing is this. It's kind of like, we claim to be a free market society, and that's what the free market's all about. That the free market's going to respond. Is it safe to go outside? Is it safe to send your children out there? Do I feel compelled? Well, a certain percentage of people will. Sure. Can you live off that percentage? And what are the consequences of being in that pool? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out real quick.
You will. Yeah. Yeah. So what do you have? What do you have planned for the rest of the day?
We've been so busy. So I've got calls after this. I've got to get together with Brian to discuss a few things. We're so busy right now. We've hired people in the last.
That's awesome.
It is and it isn't. I mean, it only sounds awesome, Joanne. And the reason I say that is because we're making decisions without understanding what the future holds. And I guess we always do that. But it's a lot more obvious now. Like, is the decision you're making the best one? What's going to be long term? And for us, it's kind of like, even though I just said what I said, that this is going to be a good rodeo in the next 6 months. What are you going to do? I mean, we've got our gloves on. I mean, we're fighting like hell, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And
yeah, and going back to what you said, it's becoming more and more apparent every week who those fighters are. Yep. And who's decided to just go to sleep and run for the hills. And sad but true, the ones who are just digging in and looking for the opportunities and looking for those silver linings and taking advantage to really figure out, okay, who do we help now? Who can we help over the next 3 to 6 months? And what does that mean to the way we used to do business? Do we need to change? How can we change? How can we be better?
Yeah, it kind of makes the cream rise to the top. I mean, when it comes to like people who are looking for qualified leads, I mean, they're exposing themselves a little more rapidly and with greater vigor. I mean, it's, and that's the thing, the people who are fighting are finding other people like themselves that are moving forward with this stuff. I mean, that's kind of the native outcome. I mean, people's kind of like, will coalesce and come together. And the people who are sleeping or who are in a flight kind of capacity right now, they're finding plenty of those people too that are, they're just, I'll wait this out or I'll do this or that. I mean, it's interesting to see people's responses that have, and this is kind of an unfortunate thing that I see, because I'm an old person now, Joanne. I could be my mid 50s now. But when you go through an economic downturn of 2008, you like that is a punch in the gut. When I was a child, my dad, who was a doctor, he started a clinic in when it was in the mid 80s. In his, he got a building, like at an 18% interest rate. I mean, could you imagine buying real estate with having that type of mortgage? I mean, it would crush you. But he's just like, you know what? It's not going to be like this forever. What's funny about it now is it turned out to be the best investment he had ever made in this horrible market. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I've got that property for sale right now. If anyone wants to
say it's like a piece of swampland in Florida or something?
No, it's kind of funny you say that. It does. It is on the water.
Oh.
It's a crazy piece of property. It's basically, I don't know if you can see it, but it's almost a two. You can't really see it because of the reflective nature. It's on a basically a quarry that's over 150 years old, smack dab in downtown Naperville.
In downtown where?
Naperville, Illinois.
Oh, okay.
It's the suburb of Chicago. People who live there seem to like it. I couldn't stand it personally. I shouldn't say that. I know some people who are in Naperville right now in the print industry that might watch this. They're going to be like, dude, I just moved here.
We can always edit it out.
Yeah, hopefully Scott Holton's not one of the guys who watches this because he just moved to Naperville not too long.
Oh, really? Shout out.
Hey, Scott. No, I love Scott. He used to work with Christine, actually. He's
wow.
that knows mail really, really well. So
that's awesome. Well,
so what about you? I mean, do you feel like there's a difference in Canada and the U.S., or what's your take on that?
Oh, wow.
Does where you live matter, Joanne? Let me ask you. I'll turn the tables on you.
I would like to say that things are just a little bit calmer here, which they are. I mean, let's face it, they are. Okay. That doesn't mean we don't have our own hell that we're going through. Sure. I do know that GTA, I believe I heard this morning, GTA is the Greater Toronto area. So that's like the land mass of most of Toronto. Right. I don't live in the GTA. I live in the burbs. But I believe that a big part of the GTA went to phase 3 today, which I don't know if are you guys doing phased approaches too? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3?
We were trying to in Wisconsin, but the Supreme Court said you can't tell people what to do. And then as soon as they struck down the governor's phased approach, people were out in the bars that night. And now we're seeing a COVID spike. So
yeah. So I think maybe we're a little bit less like that. So in the sense that we are most are adhering to the phased approaches. So there are certain pockets in Canada that had been to phase 3 already. There are some that are still in phase 2. I don't think that there's anybody still in phase 1. I think most are either in phase 2 or starting to go into phase 3, which means like 50 people can congregate, movie theaters are opening up, there's more return to normal. And how long that will last, we don't, and it's, definitely keeping a watchful eye. We are very much about, if go get tested, we want everybody to be tested. It's encouraged by the Prime Minister, by the Premier. Like, if you even think you have it, go get tested. Like, it's because we want to have the data. We want to have real data. We want to have accurate data. We want to make sure that, deaths reported truly are they really COVID, or is it something else and it's all being lumped into COVID? Because there's been chatter about that too. I mean, Nobody really, really knows. All we know is if we have the data, there's more of an opportunity to get to the truth.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, without the data, how can you tell? Testing here has been really kind of, it depends on where you're at. I mean,
Yeah.
even in Madison, we're in Bonaire in mid-March flying back. We're worried about getting back into the country. And, we're in the Atlanta airport, prime time, and we're lumped in with South Korean flights and all these flights. And I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't think there's anyone out there doing, like intentionally doing stupid things. But you're in action, I mean, is inaction the same thing as action, in some of these things? And I told my wife, I'm like, God, if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would look at this and say, they're trying to spread the stuff right now. And then my uncle died in the end of March, and I wasn't feeling that great after vacation. I was trying to get tested, and they're like, you can't get a test, and so I missed my uncle's funeral, which kind of sucked. And it's just, but even today, I mean, in Florida, you have to wait 2 weeks. What's the point of even getting tested? I mean,
yeah,
it's like it's so just flawed in our country right now. And you hear what, the politicians will tell you, there's not a problem. We're doing great. We're doing more testing than anyone. It's like, really? What is it? But you can't do anything with the data because it's so old. Like, what's
yeah,
your point?
yeah. So it's, again, we all have our challenges, and I would like to see we are starting to emerge. I mean, both my kids have been back at work for the last, I'd say, 3 weeks. One works in a mall. He works at Skechers.
Oh, really?
And, some days he says it's like insane busy. And a lot of people go to the malls because of the air conditioning, because we've been having major heat waves here, heat, humidity, and, confined to us. Now you can finally go somewhere and it's air conditioned. He says most people are wearing masks.
Oh, they don't have a mask mandate there then.
So there are more and more becoming mandated. I believe it's been mandated on public transportation. It's been mandated at like Costco and Walmart, like some of the bigger stores, but not every single place has mandated it. But I think most people are wearing it. Obviously, it's funny. I guess I said he works at Skechers, and when he went back to work, the first thing I said to him was, so did they give you masks? Are they giving you masks? He goes, well, of course they're going to give us masks. I go, I wonder if they're going to be like branded. Like, imagine you have your mask that's branded with the Skechers logo, and that actually has the associate's name on it. Like, it would have his name, Zach, on it.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Can you imagine that, right? And I also know, as an associate, he has one of those pins that says he's bilingual. So if there's somebody that comes into the store who speaks French, they can speak to him because it says I speak French. So imagine if all of that could sort of be incorporated into the mask. And
it can be.
That would be really cool. And he's like, no, they just gave us the disposable masks.
Oh, yeah.
And what a missed opportunity.
But you know what, though? I think that, well, again, I mean, I think it's the investment on what's going to happen in the future. And are we going to be wearing masks, 2 months from now?
I predict masks are going to become a huge fashion accessory. Seriously, you're going to have the mask, the purse, the socks, the scarf, the tie. It's all going to be
right
together, and depend, the little, whatever you used as an accessory is going to now be extended. And I've seen, I think it was in the COVID-19 group on LinkedIn, where they had, oh, do you have a cloud mask?
I want
one.
It doesn't have my name on it, but.
Oh, that's awesome. But no, now they're doing visors with like characters on them, and there's actually a bricks and mortar store now selling, I think it was a printer who was doing PPPs and then decided to do like funny like frogs so kids wouldn't be scared. And the adults are getting a kick out of it. So now it's not just kid stuff. There would be like Star Wars or all kinds of stuff on these face shields. And I'm thinking, okay, this is where it's going to go. The floor graphics, all the partitions, everything that we've been doing in response to this pandemic will live on, but they will morph, I think, into opportunities to brand and market and advertise, and it will just become the next normal, I think.
No, I 100% agree with. We already do it, right? I mean, you look at apparel, what apparel means for, the print industry. We've got a lot of clients who have a pretty significant apparel presence. I mean, that's a big part of their business. And I think the mask is going to be, it's the 2020 t-shirt, right?
Yeah.
Print a funny thing on it, do what you want. And, can you hear Bean the Cloud?
Oh, I'm glad it's your dog, not mine. I've been just sitting like, okay, how long till the dog barks or the cat howls or something goes on in this house? And I'm shocked that nothing's happened yet. So I'm glad it's on your side.
Oh, geez, nice. She's a good dog. She's like, there's a few things that set her off. Ironically, the mailman's one of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's like the mailman.
Oh.
But getting back to it, I think that the mask is going to be the next thing, and I don't think it's going to be going away anytime soon. And even if it's not, I mean, as human beings, we collect these things through our lives when stuff happens. And if you did that, here's the thing with that. I mean, if you did it, I mean, talk about staying power. I doubt anyone's going to throw that out, because how could you?
Yeah.
It's just this memento of this crazy, crazy time. And if that doesn't happen, then I guess we're probably going to be wearing it for a while, and you wouldn't either way. Right?
I'm pretty sure at least the next 12 to 18 months, they are going to be very prevalent in our society.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of time before there's a mandate in this country. I mean, they're fighting like hell against it, but I mean, the science is pretty clear. And, sometimes you just need a mountain of evidence to wake up and be like, maybe this is a better idea. And the medical professionals, I don't know, maybe I like doctors more because my dad was one, but I mean, I trust what that guy said when it came to medical stuff. I mean, I just don't understand why people are doubting this. I mean, it's crazy to me.
Yeah. It's like, is it worth the risk? I mean, yes, if you stick your finger in a light socket, you're going to get electrocuted.
You don't know.
When you have a baby, you put the little. Sorry?
I said, you don't know that. It could be a switch socket. The light switch could be off. You can be jamming your finger in that light socket all day. There's no harm there.
Exactly. But, when you have kids, you put those little plastic things
to
protect them. Right. So it doesn't mean they're going to do it. And to your point, it doesn't mean that if they do, they will get hurt. But sure, if there's the possibility that it could cause some significant damage, then you're going to do what you can to protect your kids. So that's how I look at it, is like, is it a guarantee? No. But if there's any part of it that could either help prevent myself from something or somebody else, because for whatever reason, maybe I'm carrying something, who knows, why wouldn't I do that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, well, because I don't think people perceive the same risk. I mean, that's just it. And let's all grab a fork and stick in the socket and see what happens.
Okay, why don't you do that and tell me all about it?
You know what? I've had my fair share of shocks in my life. I don't need another one.
Exactly. All right, Scott, we're wrapping this up. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can connect with you. Whatever they need to know.
Whatever they need to know. You can find me pretty easy on LinkedIn, and my name's spelled down there, Scott Eganhouse. And I guess I didn't make a formal introduction, but I'm with TEC.
Neither did I. That's what happens when you shoot the shit.
That's fine.
People stick through to the end just to figure it all out. We don't want to make it easy.
Hide it in the middle or something, because I mean, if you bookend it, it makes it too easy. You can just go right.
Exactly.
No, I mean, listen. I mean, I don't know if we're necessarily here to promote our businesses and stuff like that.
No, we're here to shoot the shit. But still, if somebody does want to check it out, TEC.
Yeah, they can find
TEC mailing.
Mailing.com, where you'll probably see it at a trade show if you go to Printing United, where the other ones. Not in Canada, though. We love the Canadians. I don't know. Paul knows more about the U.S. Postal Service than like 99% of the people I've talked to.
Oh, for sure.
So it's like, I'm like, what the hell is this Canadian dude know more about all these other people about U.S. mail? But
Most Canadians know more about the US than they do about Canada.
why is that?
Because you're the US, man.
Yeah, we think we're great.
No, it's true though. It's sad, but it's true. I
What-
think more, okay, let me rephrase that. I think more Canadians know about the US than the US knows about Canada.
That's true.
Is that a fair?
Yeah, I would say most Americans don't know that you're a bilingual country. Yeah, that's absolutely fair to say.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
So there you go. And we like milk in bags. Did you know about that? We
Milk,
drink
milk and
milk
bags.
comes in bags, right?
Milk's in bags. Yeah, yeah. It's, you guys have a little bit more European flair than the
Yeah.
US.
Well, we're all very, and especially I mean, I was born in Montreal, so I was heavily influenced by, the French
Oh, sure.
influence and all of that. Now, no disrespect to France. I know that Quebec and France were not the same. It's not even the same real French. It's different French.
But it's the influence, though.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge European influence. And it's funny because Montreal especially has a tremendous European influence, where I find Toronto and the bigger cities have more of a US influence.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you look at places like Windsor and stuff like that, and I mean, it's there's so much commonality we have as people. It's the same continent. There's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
It's in the other thing I think we take for granted as Americans is how great of a relationship we have with our neighboring countries, which is not common in the world, right? I mean, that's something we take for granted, and we probably shouldn't do that so much. I don't know. I think a lot of Americans, when it comes to thinking outside of the country, are are you familiar with the term cognitive miser? It's a huge theory. I mean, it's an interesting theory. I mean, people are, when it comes to cognition, they're miserly. They don't want to exercise their brain that much. They want to make things distill down to the simplest stuff. So you just, it's like throwing your brain on a couch and not having it work too hard. There's a little bit of that going on, I'm sure. But I really appreciate you having me on today.
Oh, this was awesome. I love it. And thank you for shooting the shit with me.
Always, Jonah. Always.
All right. I don't know when this is going to make it up there. I'm like totally overloaded my team. Clients will always trump me. No, that was a poor choice of words. Clients will always take precedence over JGC. But we will get all this stuff out, and then I've got a couple more to get out and share these awesome conversations. Yeah, I love it.
It's funny when it comes to using the word Trump, I kind of wonder what that term is going to mean 6 months from now, 6 years from now, and 16 years from now.
Yeah.
History has a kind of a weird way of looking back at this stuff, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah. So
greatest president of all time. Probably the most remembered. Yeah, I think he'll be remembered. I mean, it's a tough thing. I mean, I think that everyone in this country wants to see their president do well and do the best thing that they can, and yeah, who knows? I mean, that stuff's best reflected after their term. There
you go. Exactly.
All right, Joanne. We'll see you soon.
Have a great one, lovey. Bye.